which I'll talk about later as well. And a lot of people think it's a little bit unusual that I'm doing a graphic novel because my background is more on the stage. So I did want to kind of talk about the genesis of why Brian Epstein and why a graphic novel, and then bring you up to today with the film news. We will be starting the cast of Brian in a month, so we're very, very excited about this year when it comes to the film. But it really is a joy for me to be back in Philadelphia. I haven't been here in a while. It's a long overdue return for me. I did go to school here. I went to UPenn and Wharton. And in many ways, the Fifth Beatle really did start here in Philadelphia because it was while I was at Wharton that I discovered the Brian Epstein story. I was a business student, dreaming about working in the entertainment space. And being a little academic, I thought if I'm going to work in entertainment, I should study the lives of the great entertainment visionaries. And to me, I grew up a longtime Beatles fan, and I believed that the Beatles and Brian Epstein, their manager, were the team that kind of wrote and then rewrote the rules of the pop music business. So it seemed like a natural thing to do that I should study the life of Brian Epstein. Not to date myself too much, but this was 21 years ago. So it was some time ago. I like dropping that number for two reasons. One is I turned 40 last year, so I can literally say I've been working on this project for more than half my life. It really is a labor of love. But also putting it in context, 21 years ago, from a research perspective, there are none of the online resources that we take for granted today. There's no Wikipedia, there's no YouTube, there are no books about Brian Epstein in print. The Fifth Beatle right now is the only book about Brian, graphic novel or otherwise. There's one excellent biography on Brian that's a bit of a doorstop. It's yay thick, so it's only for people who are very serious about the topic, that has been out of print for about 20 years, or more, because I started this 21 years ago. It's probably been out of print for 30 years. And when I began this research, there was no Amazon Marketplace, there was no Ave Books, there was nowhere to find used books. I grew up in New York City, and I went to the Strand, the famous bookstore there. I did a rare book search. It showed up 4 months later. And this was kind of, this was amazing to me, that you could literally walk into a bookstore and find a book about John Lennon's astrologist, and you couldn't find a book about the guy that discovered the band and managed them and guided them to unprecedented stardom. And so that kind of fueled my interest in the subject. I felt like I was doing, as a detective, I was doing some kind of research, some kind of an investigation to uncover details about this guy. And because there were no sort of online references in books, I really had no choice but to do interviews. So I got my hands on every respected Beatles book that I could find, and I'd read these 200, 300-page books about the Beatles, and I'd find 10 or 15 good pages about Brian. But eventually what that did is it helped me to paint a portrait of who were the people that were closest to him. And in many cases, these weren't his artists, because he tried to shield his artists from his personal struggles, from his business concerns. So the people who really knew Brian intimately were people like Nat Weiss, who was his best friend and closest confidant, and was also the Beatles' U.S. attorney. Sid Bernstein, who was the legendary concert promoter that brought the Beatles over to the United States. And Sid and Brian were both Jewish, and their Jewish heritage was very important to them, so Sid knew a lot about Brian's personal life and his family. It was really folks like that, Joanne Peterson, who was his assistant. So I got a portrait of who these people were, and I literally just called them. I tracked them down, and I called them. And at the time, I was just a young guy. I was a student. I had no resume, no credits to my name. Unsurprisingly, they were all a little wary to talk to me at first. But I think after realizing that I was legitimately that passionate student who had been inspired by what the little he knew about Brian Epstein and really was just trying to learn more about this guy, they saw that my heart was in the right place and that I had no ulterior motives. I was just a passionate guy looking for some inspiration, and they were willing to talk to me. And over the years, I'm very proud to say that these people all became friends. We've ended up spending a lot of time together, and really over the past 20 years, they more and more started to open up about more intimate aspects of Brian's life. And the truth is, it really is only in the past 7 to 10 years that I really was able to paint the full picture of who Brian was as a human being, because it really did take that long for them to kind of be willing to open up to me. And I'll explain sort of why that is in a minute